Dune, Part 2 takes place so soon after the events of the first movie that the Fremen are still returning Jameis' body home after he lost to Paul Atreides in combat. To his mother Jessica's dismay, Paul decided to travel with the Fremen following the slaughter of House Atreides. House Harkonnen intensifies its onslaught on the Fremen, believing that Paul and Jessica have been captured by the desert and are now full of rage after eliminating the Atreides invaders. This results in a few remarkably staged fights between the warriors and troops. The first hour of the film is skillfully filled by Villeneuve and his team with fight sequences that counter the Harkonnen military's weaponry and the Fremen tribal combatants, who frequently actually rise from the ground to destroy them. In a scene that feels almost operatic, massive ships erupt into flames and bodies fall from the sky. In the midst of the mayhem, Stellan Skarsgård pushes even more toward looking like a cross between Nosferatu and Jabba the Hutt, as Dave Bautista eerily paints Rabban Harkonnen as a wartime leader who is in over his head. A possible Dune Part 3 adaptation would be even better, given that Part 2 of the novel threatens an even more terrible conclusion than the book does. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, has stated that he hopes to adapt Frank Herbert's second novel in the series, Dune Messiah, for a third Dune movie. Before it was confirmed that the movie would indeed be produced, a screenplay was already being written, indicating that the plot of Dune Part 2 is designed to accommodate a threequel. In addition to taking us through the conclusion of the first book, Dune Part 2 also includes spoilers for the second and third volumes. Even though Dune Part 2 simplifies a complicated book, it makes sense that you might still have some questions. Similar to the book, Emperor Shaddam IV arrives in Arrakis in the film's conclusion to put an end to the Fremen uprising and punish the Harkonnens for not carrying out his dirty job. The Atreides family atomic bombs and the sandworms are used by Paul and the Fremen to conquer and retake Arrakeen, the capital city Arrakis. If you're wondering what everyone means when they talk about bringing the atomics and sandworms through the shield wall, it's a naturally occurring rock wall that shields this particular area of Arrakis from the harsher weather seen elsewhere on the planet. It's not a force field protect. Part 2 of Dune continues where the first left off, and it functions better as half of a massive 5-hour film than as a standalone work. Still, it offers insanely high levels of tension, intricate subject matter, and fantastic performances from the ensemble cast, which is led by Jason Calumet and Zendaya. The science fiction space opera, written by Frank Herbert, has a lot of moving parts, and in the last hour of Dune Part 2, they all come to a head. After escaping an attack on his family, Paul was able to successfully integrate the Fremen, while his mother, Lady Jessica, and her influential Bene Gesserit sisters persisted in spreading the prophecy of the Kwisatz Haderach, a strong super being that the Arrakis natives recognize as the Messiah and refer to as the Mahdi or the Lisan al-Gaib, different terms for similar concepts. Paul becomes more and more of a member of the Fremen because they think his expertise will help them in their struggle against the colonists' search for the potent stimulant known as spice on Arrakis. Unaware that Paul has taken on the name Muad'Dib as a member of the Fremen, and that he survived the attack planned by him and the House Harkonnen to drive the Atreides from Arrakis, Christopher Walken's Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV learns of the rise of a formidable Fremen soldier, as portrayed in 2021's Dune. Paul, Lady Jessica, and the Fremen journey to the south of Arrakis, which is thought to be uninhabitable by outsiders, where they come under severe bombardment from the vicious Feyd Rautha, Austin Butler, the successor to the Harkonnen. There, the last prophecy is fulfilled when Paul consumes the deadly water of life, a liquid taken from sandworms, and leaves to become his ultimate clairvoyant form. Additionally, the majority of the Bene Gesserit's efforts have been focused on propagating religious fanaticism that honors Kwisatz Haderach, Lisan al-Gaib in the south. The Fremen become devoted followers of Paul after his deeds validate everything they had prophesied, thinking he will guide them into paradise. Paul resisted his fate for a while, but in the end he gave in to it, supporting the religious ideas of the Fremen, which he knows to be false and controlled. Though Chani, who believes that religion is a tool used to subjugate the weak, feels betrayed and that her people have been betrayed, she is helpless against her fellow Fremen's heedless worship of their supposed Messiah. Paul and the Fremen hold the Emperor hostage and slaughter the majority of his army and the Harkonnen leaders, with the help of the nuclear might of the House Atreides. Paul's ultimate objective is to wed Shaddam IV's daughter, Florence Pugh's Princess Erudilin, and take over the Empire by betraying Zendaya's Chani. Paul offers the old Padishah Emperor the choice to select a champion to battle in his place, rather than murdering him. Feyd-Rautha offers his services and almost kills him, but the Duke overcomes him to take the throne. Betrayed, heartbroken, and furious at Paul for taking advantage of the Fremen's gullibility, Chani sets out on her own quest across the desert. We won't learn more about it until Dune Messiah is eventually made, which is becoming increasingly likely in the wake of Dune. Part 2's overwhelmingly positive early reviews. The last few minutes of Dune, Part 2, in a significant divergence from the novel, center on Chani Zendaya doing out alone on the Arrakis desert. We are told that Chani is preparing her maker hooks, which the Fremen use to ride sandworms, and that she is also rebuffing Paul's insane power grab. Earlier, Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, tells Paul that she's sorry about Chani, which is code for saying that she feels bad for Paul since Chani is essentially abandoning him because he's chosen to follow the path of a violent religious fanatic, and she's not cool with it. However, Paul tells his mother at that same moment, she'll come to realize, I've witnessed it. This appears to portend what happens in the second book, Dune Messiah, which picks up more than 10 years later and follows Chani as she gives birth to Leto II and Ganima, her and Paul's twins. In that book, Chani remains devoted to Paul until her death while giving birth. But will we see Dune 3? Will it unfold in the same manner as the novels? Like breaking through the shield wall, the conclusion of Dune, Part 2 roughly repeats the events of the novel and appears to pave the way for Dune 3. Will it, nevertheless, actually happen? Time is passing, and I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my days on Arrakis, filmmaker Denis Villeneuve said recently. Despite the fact that he needs a break from this, he has also stated that he is developing the screenplay for the third movie. In any case, all of the book's adjustments, both significant and minor, in Dune, Part 2 might result in a very different outcome for House Atreides, the Fremen, and the Arrakis tale if Dune 3 comes to pass.